Let's stay with this particular story now and get reaction from the DA Federal Chair Helen Zille. Thank you so much, Helen, for your time, and good evening to you. Let's start with your reaction to the statement by the presidency.
Thank you very much, Bongiwe. That statement needs to be read carefully because there are two parts to it. One is that the BELA Act will be implemented in its entirety. The other part is that Siphiwe Gwarube, the Minister of Basic Education, first has to draw up norms, standards and regulations to govern the implementation of the contentious sections. That is Section 4, D, E and F, and Section 5A and C. So the President has signed the entire Act into law, and we're aware of that, and that was an agreement that came out of the clearinghouse mechanism and out of the task team that reports to the clearinghouse mechanism. But the important point is that Minister Siphiwe Gwarube gets to ensure that the norms, standards and regulations are there before those sections are implemented.
And I was in conversation with Sato a little earlier on, and I brought this point to them. And Nomusa was saying that for her, it's not a big deal because everything should be there in any case, and it doesn't mean that there'll be some delays. Is that your understanding as well?
There will be some delays, obviously, because of the fact that it takes time to formulate norms and standards and regulations. It takes a lot of time. There's a legal process that you have to go through. It involves public participation. It involves a whole range of issues. So Siphiwe Gwarube will go through the legal process properly, step by step, and will get those norms, standards and regulations in place so that the contentious aspects of the bill can be implemented within that framework.
So did the clearinghouse agree on how much time this could take?
No, they didn't. Not at all. It normally takes about 18 months to finalize these norms and standards and regulations following the process as it's intended to be followed in law.
So you had expressed some concerns, of course, about this particular bill, even, campaigning during the elections, but also afterwards and in recent times as well, also speaking about the issue of Afrikaans, for example, and looking at the president's statement, he says that every person has the right to receive education in their official language and their language of the choice where reasonably practicable. And he then lists, of course, the number of languages. They have those concerns for you been addressed?
Well, PANSALB has existed for close on 30 years, and the question to ask is, what have they done in terms of their mandate to make mother tongue education accessible to more and more children? The Afrikaans community has done a lot to ensure mother tongue education for their children. The deaf community has done an enormous amount to ensure that sign language instruction can be given and that they can learn all their subjects through the medium of sign language so that it becomes a language of instruction. The question is, what has happened with the other languages? They've been totally neglected by PANSALB, and that is where the focus now needs to be.
So what does that mean then? Does it mean it's not over for the Democratic Alliance on this particular issue?
Well, nothing's ever over. I mean, we will continue to fight for democracy and for the Constitution forever. And the bottom line is that we agreed in the clearinghouse mechanism, in the task team that reported to the clearinghouse mechanism, we agreed that eventually the full BELA Act will be implemented when the norms, standards and regulations governing sections 4, D, E and F and 5A and C are in place. So that is the agreement.
So Helen, can I then maybe say, just tell me if I'm interpreting your position correctly here. You are saying we're backing you on condition that this process that needs to be done is done correctly. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
So what happens then? Let's say 18 months comes and the process is not complete and things aren't done. Has the clearing committee, the clearinghouse rather, did they discuss what does this mean then for this access that the president is talking about in his statement?
No, we did not discuss that in the clearinghouse because it's not up to the clearinghouse. It's up to Minister Gwarube to determine how long that takes to do it properly and according to the law.
But ultimately, it may not be up to the clearinghouse, but up to her. But these are political parties who hold different views on this particular matter. So if it does happen that she reaches that point and you're not happy, you are not going to be silent. So it means that we may find ourselves here again.
Well, we may certainly find ourselves here again on any specific day, but the president has seen fit to trust Siviwe Gwarube to put together those regulations, those norms and standards, and to make sure that she finishes them in a reasonable time frame. And we have a lot of confidence in Siviwe Gwarube to do that.
And what happens then when it comes to the other parties, not political parties, that is, you've got unions who are saying that they're going to be taking this matter to the courts should this particular act now be, fully implemented. They're not happy about clauses 4 and 5, also sharing the concerns that you shared that the Schools Act also deals with some of the issues that are in clauses 4 and 5. So for them, if this is fully implemented, it's a problem. Did you discuss at all what happens if these parties decide to take it to the courts?
Well, anyone is free to go to the courts if they need to. That is open to any citizen. And of course, they need to go and we'll see what the courts say. So
when then you look at this particular issue, with all these issues that are still hanging, for example, we're speaking to NAPTOSA, they were raising concerns about grade R, saying that even next year, things may not be ready when it comes to the schooling system to take all the children into grade R to ensure that all of them are there universally. And then there's this issue of norms and standards that now still needs to be dealt with. It could take up to 18 months, as you say. So what does it all mean then for this particular act that has been signed into law, and yet people will expect that it kicks in almost immediately?
Well, the president has made it clear that it's very difficult, in fact, impossible to kick in act immediately, even though there aren't the necessary frameworks to do so. Now, grade R is a very good example, because if every single child who is required to be in grade R rocks up to grade R next year, the system won't be ready to accommodate them. So it's very important for the minister to say, okay, the whole of BELA is going to be implemented now. We need to put everything in place to make it possible for it to be. And that is what she has to spend the next year, 2 years doing.
So Helen, if I may ask, did you do this as a concession? Or did the DA really decide that in that parties meeting and the clearinghouse and all of that, that it's okay to go ahead with this implementation? Because I remember there were some strong words. At some point you were saying they cannot govern without us. This we're taking seriously. We had a very firm view on the BELA Act in the lead up to the elections. So was it a concession on your part, or did you fully back this?
Well, if you look at the NEDLAC agreement, it's almost exactly the same as the NEDLAC agreement. It says BELA goes ahead, but they've got to be norms and standards and regulations. That's what this says. So it's nothing fundamentally different from that. And when you're in a coalition, there's give and take on both sides. You can't get everything you want. Obviously, otherwise we would have gone back to the South African Schools Act, clause 5 and 6. We didn't do that. But even NEDLAC agreed that the whole of BELA would be implemented, but there would be norms, standards and regulations before certain sections, and you've mentioned grade R, before those sections can be implemented.
So it was a concession?
Of course, everybody gives concessions. I mean, SATU would have liked, nothing to stand in their way. That's the whole point about coalitions. You can't get everything you want, but you've got to get some things you want. And if you look at this negotiation and this debate, we've got some things we wanted and we haven't got other things we wanted. Ditto with the ANC.
So what do you say then to those who are backing supporters of the Democratic Alliance who are hoping that you're going to get everything you want, and they think that all this tough talk was nothing but a futile exercise?
Well, we did get it. I mean, the point is that Siviwe Gwarube, the Minister of Basic Education, will draw up the norms, standards and regulations that will govern the contested clauses of BELA and the ones that can't be implemented next year. That we won. And that is very important. and it is what was won in NEDLAC, and it's exactly the same almost
and
as
are
the
you
outcome of the NEDLAC process.
And have your concerns about the HODs been put at rest when it comes, been put to rest rather, when it comes to the provinces and the power that you were concerned they're going to have?
Well, of course, we'll see what happens when the norm, standards and regulations are out.
All right, Helen, let's chat then soon and see if the norms and standards process is going ahead as planned, and also if indeed it's on track. As you say, some concessions were made, some agreements were made, but now the norms and standards process is still a conversation in 2024, and it becomes critical to the implementation of the BELA Act. Thank you so much for your time. That was Hellen Zille, Federal Chairperson of the Democratic Alliance.